up to a new morning. Pop in a little nostalgia. Just be kind and listen to the rewind.
Welcome to the Rewind Podcast, the show that explores TV and film through a queer millennial lens.
Meaning we're a couple of gay nerds who watch a megaload of television and then record ourselves overanalyzing it. Hence this podcast.
Today we're recording on the day that our first episode of the season actually airs because we're constantly in the time machine. I stole that from another podcast I love. Yeah,
Constantly in the
Jonah,
time machine. What does that mean?
Because they record in advance and then the release dates are later. So oftentimes when they're talking, they're like, okay, these things have already happened. And that's why we're not talking about it because we're in the time machine. So it haven't happened yet.
Talking about, yeah, that's fun. That's a fun way to look at it.
I love it.
And I have to say, when I saw our episode pop up for the first time in like 2 years, like I had a warm and fuzzy feeling, honestly. I was like, oh, look, we're back.
I also want you to know that as last night, while I was adding us to iHeart into something called Good Pods, which we were evidently already on, but I just claimed it. Oh shit, I lost the point that I was going on. But people have been listening to the pod, and Good Pods kind of sorts it out. So it'll tell people like, this is like the last episode. This is the most popular episode. So it like breaks it down. It was really cute. And I wanted to tell you that we've had like already people have been like listening to a couple of episodes for the last over the last course of the month. I feel like since we've been recording, we've had a few plays, and that's really fun. Um,
Yeah.
and there's and not it's not like a shit ton of people. It might be like 30 listeners or something. But we even had a little Spotify Wrapped for our listeners, and it does all that information. I think it's in the email if you hadn't seen it, maybe.
That's
I'm
cool.
not
I
sure.
always enjoyed the Spotify rap. So, well, good on you, good pods. I wonder how they
Yeah.
found us, or did we
I
find them?
think it I think it's just like a podcast aggregator. And so things
Hmm.
just kind of exist there, or maybe someone has like recommend. I don't know. I just, as I was going through uploading the episode and going through some of the new settings on how the Spotify creator site works, I saw a couple of different platforms that I didn't realize were a thing because, I don't know. And I think there are a couple of other ones that I need to update, but it was a process last night. But I was like, oh, this is fun. I didn't know that iHeartMedia had like podcasts and stuff, so that's fun. In my mind, it's just a radio.
Yeah, no, they have some really notable like podcasts too, like big celebrity podcasts. I think Chelsea
Mm.
Chelsea Handler's podcast is through iHeart, I want to say, and
Chelsea
several.
Handler, I'm a fan.
Love her, love Chelsea.
Mm.
I've been listening to her for years on her podcast, and she's had different variations of podcasts, the same way she's had different variations of her talk
Of the
shows.
show. Yeah, I've seen the talk shows. I've never listened to the pods.
In this episode, we're taking a bloody brainy bite out of the 2013 series Hannibal.
Yes.
Spoilers too, by the way. So if you haven't seen Hannibal the series, be sure to go watch it if you don't want to be spoiled. Although I don't think we'll spoil too much because I'm the only one of the two of us who've seen it all the way through, and I can't remember half of it. So I think
That's
you're safe,
hilarious.
honestly.
Yes, I did. Okay, I admit that I always do this. So I've been a little hint to what I've been watching. I decided to rewatch Arrowverse shows, and I've been rewatching Stargirl, which it's just such a feel-good show that makes me warm in the heart to watch. And at some point in time, I was like, oh shit, what are we covering? And so I had to like go to the document and I was like, I probably need to watch some of this so I can lend to the conversation. And I absorbed 4.5 episodes last night.
It's easy to do. It's so exciting now to me that it's exciting to me that you're watching it finally. I'm so glad you are because I felt like you would love it, or at least like it. But
Yeah, I'm super into it.
but also I didn't I didn't watch it when it was bingeable. I watched it as it was airing in real time.
Ooh,
So it's exciting for me to revisit and being able to binge it. And I think I'm going
yes.
to continue after watching the first the 1.5 episodes because I was in the
Hmm.
middle of episode 2 when we started
Yeah.
recording. I remembered how much I liked it, and the acting's really good, and we're gonna get into it, but it's there's so much about that show that's just so well done. I feel that it's an
Yeah.
easy rewatch. You know what I mean? Like and
Yeah.
I'm already fascinated by the whole Hannibal Lecter lore anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it
So
really inspired me to pop open this bottle of Malbec. I mean,
if you break out like a raw steak and start
listen,
cutting on it,
Jonah.
I'm gonna
Okay,
give you
so
side eye.
I will say this. I was a little apprehensive because I'm like, I don't feel like watching cannibalism for like a full season of it. And
Mhm.
there, of those episodes that I consumed, like, yes, you see Mads cooking. Um, and there's a little in our trivia about the show, there's some information about that. But there was so far only one time that you saw him preparing what looked to be human stuff because I was like, okay, that's fully a lung. It's like a Greek tragedy where all the craziness happens off screen. And then, like, so when he took old dude that breakfast, eggs and sausage, you know what he was really eating.
I have forgotten so much of that show, but I remember seeing that scene, and like I just watched that scene again,
Hmm.
and there was something about it that's like this is notable for some reason, but I can't remember why. That's the exciting thing about, revisiting a show that you've
Yeah.
only watched all the way through once. And, I watched it in real time, so there was all these gaps. There's like a full week-long gap, sometimes more. So there's a lot to
Mm,
be forgotten and remembered as you're rewatching it.
yeah.
So in a way, I feel like I'm watching it for the first time because I have
I
such a
love
shitty
that.
memory. Yeah, and I've made notes and stuff too, which I should probably pull those up.
Now, I didn't
I
make notes, but I will definitely respond to all the things. I
You'll
here's
respond to my
so
notes.
okay. First, no one told me Lawrence Fishburne was in this show, which we'll go over the cast in a second. But like, no
Mhm.
one told me he was in this show. Um, and no one, I didn't check to see how many episodes she's in, but by like episode, I think 3 or 4, I found out Gina Torres is in the show. I was like, well, this buried the lead. These are two
Yeah.
people I adore. I would have probably
Oh,
tuned in a lot longer ago, a lot longer. I don't. I would have tuned in earlier had I known that. I'm not familiar with Mads Mikkelsen or the other guy. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. But first, Jonah, what's that viral clip of the week about?
well, so this week's clip isn't exactly viral, but it is especially
Okay.
relevant to us and this podcast. Keeks. Guess which one of our favorite Buffy alum is planning to kick off their own rewatch podcast?
Who?
Charisma Carpenter.
I saw you typing. Okay, so this is the thing. I can't look at the document because I don't want to know. And as you were
Yeah,
typing
it
it, I
spoils.
almost saw it. And so you know how I feel. And what's so funny is that I saw a TikTok, not TikTok, because I'm not a TikToker like that. I was on Instagram. And this guy was like doing a shout out to our love Cordelia Chase in Helpless. And he was like, shout out to Cordelia Chase representing the mean friend, the one that will dress you down if you have to, but will always be there for you. And I was like, yes, Cordelia and Helpless.
That's so interesting that you say that because this past week alone, that's the fandom has really popped off with that particular point within that particular episode. Because well, so this is what's happening among the fandom, particularly I think newer fans, like younger
Hmm.
fans who are discovering the show for the first time. The theory among these newer fans is that Buffy's like true blue, like seemingly close besties are really shitty friends to
Hmm.
her.
Hmm.
And Cordelia is actually a better friend to her than even Willow because
I'm mad at the theory.
particularly because of moments like in Helpless, where, Buffy finds out that Giles has been drugging her. It's part of
Hmm.
a sort of ritualistic test that they do for the Slayers, the council does for the Slayers every
Yeah, it's when they reach 16, right? Which is
18.
like, is it 18? Oh, yeah, because this
Mhm.
is season
Season
three. So
3.
she's 18. So how sad is that? First of all, that tells us that very few Slayers make it to 18.
Hmm.
And then if you make it to 18, they're like, oh, okay, okay, we got some for you then. But I'm like, these are the people that are supposed to be training you to
Right.
like, to,
And it's the
okay,
gaslighting. The gaslighting is so triggering in
the
that episode.
gaslighting.
It's honestly one of my favorite episodes of the Buffyverse, and I go to it often, probably more than any other episode, because especially when I'm sick. When I'm sick and I'm
Hmm.
not feeling
Hmm.
well, I'm under the weather, it is my go-to comfort show or episode
Yeah,
because it's so empowering. Because Buffy, it's sort of that plot lines. It's sort of like her being weak because she loses her powers, her superhuman strength.
yeah,
It simulates sort of what a normal person is like when they get sick, when they get the flu or something, and they are just naturally weaker. And she also kind of, I don't know if Sarah Michelle was actually sick during the filming, but there are moments where her voice is hoarse and she
mm,
seems very low energy. I don't know if she plays that intentionally or if she's actually sick, but it feels like she has the flu, and part of that is that she believes she does in the beginning before she
right.
realizes, and Giles kind of makes her feel that way too, hence the gaslighting. When she finally finds out that Giles has been drugging her, and I mean, you're thinking she's about to deck the fuck out of him, right?
Okay.
But she's clearly like she's disgusted by him. She wants him out of her face, and Cordelia happens to walk in as they're fighting, not physically, but obviously debating or whatever you want to call it. And
Having a
she,
verbal sparring.
yes, purple sparring is a good way to put it. And she looks to Cordelia, and someone pointed out that this is the first time Buffy has ever directly asked for help from someone else. And I don't know how true that is because I find myself going
Wow.
back and trying to think of other times, but it definitely feels like one of the first and probably only time she asked for help from Cordelia.
You stuck a needle in me. You poisoned me.
What's going on? Oh God, is the world ending? I have to research a paper on Bosnia for tomorrow, but if the world's ending, I'm not gonna bother.
You can't walk home alone, Buffy. It isn't safe.
I don't know you.
Did something take her memory? He's Giles. Giles. He hangs out here a lot.
Cordelia, could you please drive me home?
Of course. But if the world doesn't end, I'm gonna need a note.
It's been a minute since I've just like had a good Buffy watch. And
Mhm.
Jonah, you know, season three is my season. I love it
It
so much.
is one of the best.
I
It's
think as I was watching Buffy as it aired, there was so much of that show I was able to, as like a gay kid who was not out, but I had my little group of friends that knew. I saw myself in Buffy. And season three was just particularly like it. I want to say season three. When did season three air?
1999.
Was it 99?
Yes,
Was
because
it
they were the
99,
class of
2000?
99. So it's 98, 99.
Okay. Geez, that's so weird. Because for some reason, I remember being, I guess maybe I was in high school doing homework watching season four. So I know it wasn't the same age as Buffy, but I was in high school, and so I just felt so much of that. I was the perfect
Hmm.
age to watch Buffy, but
Yeah.
we know it's just a superior show because people are finding it not at that age and watching it and still like falling in love.
Mhm.
Every I will stand 10 toes down saying most all shows written now, not just genre shows, but things that have some influence from Buffy.
Mm. Yes. Yes. And okay, so also, and I may even do a video about this because I've been doing these Xena videos because I'm doing the Xena rewatch. I think we always thought that Buffy sort of like opened the door for the sort of musical episode trope in TV.
I never thought that.
You didn't? I kind of
No.
did, and I felt like I've heard a lot of people talk about it, but then Xena did one, and obviously that was before Buffy, and I was like,
hmm
and I didn't even realize Xena had one. I don't know if I've ever even seen it until the other day when I was doing my rewatch. And I was like, wait, how many other shows before Buffy have been doing this? And when did this trope kind of start?
I actually think that the Melissa Joan Hart Sabrina show had a musical episode. And
Oh,
not just like the one when they were in a band, but I think there was a musical episode.
that would be,
And I'd
that
have to
makes
double check.
sense to me. That would be
I'd
on.
have to double check. And that would have been 95, 96-ish, if I'm not mistaken. But
Mm,
I feel like, especially in your ABC shows, that a musical situation was going to occur. I feel like that was something I was familiar with from like ABC shows. Maybe I'm making that memory up, but I know that I've seen other like pre-Buffy musical episodes, but I'm also a musical fan.
yeah. Well, okay, so let me get back to
But
what,
yeah,
like,
back to the points.
so this is what we do, people. This is why we have a podcast so that we can chase these rabbits. One of Charisma's fans, who follows her on her TikTok. She just discovered TikTok, by the way, which has been really fun for me. She she
Cut
was
to me
answering a
going back and watching
fan
all her videos.
she was answering a question, and the fan said something like, why how were you able to make that scene like seem how were you able to seem so compassionate and like a friend to her in that moment? And she answered, she said, because I'm damn fucking good at my job or something like that. It was very Cordelia and
And is,
sassy. And
and
honestly,
is.
honestly, I see so much, even in just, and I think this is the first time I'm really getting to see Charisma Carpenter's personality come through off screen. And it is very
Mhm.
similar to Cordelia, not in like a mean girl way, but in just a very direct, like stands on business
Yeah.
kind of way.
I
And
mean,
I am eating
let's
it up.
yes, let's not also forget our friend Kendall Calabasas. Wasn't that her name? Kendall, what was her last name on Veronica Mars?
Oh, yes, Kendall.
Was it Calabasas? I know Calabasas is a town in California, but what was
Uh,
her?
what was it? It was Dick. She was married to Dick. Was it Dick Calabasas?
Was it Calabasas? Am I remember that correctly?
It wasn't Dick. It was, or is that Dick Senior and then Dick Junior? Calabasas? I don't know. I don't know if it's Calabasas. It's definitely a city. Maybe it was. I can't remember.
Uh,
Gosh, that would be funny. I never clocked that before, honestly, if it is. But
oh, Casablancas. It's Casablancas.
I thought it was. You know what? Close enough.
I was very close. Like, who's thinking about
You're
Casablanca?
close enough. Okay,
They're
so
both cities. Anyway, okay, yes, keep going.
Charisma Carpenter, who played our beloved street shooting mean girl turned good girl Cordelia Chase and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, has recently joined TikTok, sadly in the 11th hour of its potential demise, where she's been sharing some insightful behind the scenes tidbits about her time on both shows and answering fan questions. And after much prompting from the fans, she's now in talks to do a podcast, which apparently she had started before at the top of the pandemic. I mean, she had managers, like it was rolling out.
Mm.
She's had all of it. She tells us in her videos on TikTok that she has all the plans together, all the details, it's all packaged up. It
I'm
just never got a
so
chance to take
excited.
off because I don't know if it was so much the time of the pandemic, or if it was that her manager or agent or whomever left the business
Oh,
before they were able to pull the trigger.
okay. Okay.
So now, as she's gotten on TikTok, it's kind of reignited that desire because she's realizing fans want the fuck out of this. Like they want to see a podcast. First of all, the fact that we don't have an official Buffy rewatch podcast from any of the original cast that I'm aware of is tragic.
Well, we do know that Juliet Landau has a rewatch podcast.
That's right.
Though she's not an episode one person, Drusilla has a, and I don't know if she's doing it with
Julie Benz.
Julie Benz. Oh my God. Where's our photo with her and Julie? And I'm going to put that photo
No,
on the
I still
screen
have to print that. Yes, I still have to print that out.
But yeah, so I thought she was doing what Julie Benz, but maybe Julie Benz has been on episodes.
I think that's more of the case because
okay,
I think Juliet is doing it largely solo, or at least with some other people who aren't necessarily from
or
the
maybe
show.
her husband. Maybe it's her husband that she's watching it with.
Possibly.
Okay.
Julie, we both love them. They're friends. In my head, they're friends. We met them at Comic-Con this
and we
past
have a
year.
great photo with them. I think I'm just going to leave the photo up for this.
Just leave the photo up for the whole clip. I forgot about that, but I guess I'm thinking of like quote unquote main characters, and although
of the Scoobies, there's no Scooby episode.
Yes,
no Scooby cast. No Scooby cast.
Cordelia wasn't a main character in Buffy, but she definitely was a main character in Angel, and so it would definitely be an official Angel rewatch podcast, I think. But yeah, fans want to hear it or want to see it. And
I love that so much.
This clip is actually a brief, like I've edited it down because it's a 4-minute video. Our girl likes to talk.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm okay with that. But for the sake of time and the fact that we just spent 30 minutes talking about Buffy, I've edited it down to just share a little bit of her addressing this podcast and its fruition. Ideally in the coming months. So let's take a watch.
I'm so excited. I love her so much.
Please tell me that you are actually going to start a podcast. Guys, I am dead serious about wanting to do this podcast. The fact that you said you were willing to subscribe to do a pay to listen scenario, which I did not want to do, and I was shopping my pitch. I had a couple of contract offers and it didn't work out. The vision, the price points, there were just different contract, in negotiations, things happen and it just wasn't the right fit. So I backburnered it and I just figured, well, when the time is right, I'll do it. And then here I am on TikTok and you guys are like, you got to do a podcast. And I'm like, I know, I do. I got to do a podcast. I want to do a podcast. So much to say. And, but I explained, and then you guys all said, well, we would rather pay to listen than you not do it at all. So I have meetings. So I have a meeting on the 21st with the platform. I'm going to have a team meeting, I think later today, hopefully. And I'm going stir crazy with this cold. I cannot push off meetings any longer. I'm losing my mind. I can't lay around any longer. So yes, I am dead serious about wanting to do this.
Keenan, what do you think about this news? 2, would you pay to subscribe? And 3, if she were to co-host, who do you want to see join her for the podcast?
Okay, the ultimate get would be Sarah, but we know she famously does not do podcasts, which is slightly annoying, but I understand, girl, keep your peace. I want it to be someone super random from the mangas, can she do a podcast with Jonathan, whatever that actor's name is? Or no, oh my gosh, the guy that played Andrew, because he's hilarious. He has also been on, he co-hosted a couple of episodes of Slayerfest 98, and he's so fun. He has never seen any of the Marvel things, and he will co-host some Marvel episode, and he is just hilarious. I want her to do I would love to hear that actor.
Tommy Link, right?
Yes, Tommy Link, yes. Hilarious. He has a really funny Instagram too.
Well, what about from Angel though? Because she's already someone with her foot in the world of Buffy, but I feel like there needs to be someone from Angel to balance it out.
The best get truly would have been Andy Hallett, R.I.P.
Yes.
J. August Richards. I
Yes.
would love like J. August Richards is good. I've heard him in
Yeah,
interviews.
I would
And
love
then like
that.
he's like out and married now, so he could like speak to like having to be like closeted and like do these roles, but also like there were no black writers and some of that gun stuff was rough. And I think with both of them having those experiences on the show, it would make for some interesting conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know who else would make sense to join her
Hmm.
on that
Hmm.
show from that show. I would be curious. I mean, what about Harmony? Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, Mercedes McNabb. Yeah.
Mercedes
Oh my God.
McNabb.
Yes. No, I mean, Cordelia and Harmony doing a podcast
They're
together.
two former besties.
Stop it. Yes. Yes. Okay. I want her to have Mercedes McNabb as like her permanent co-host, and then I want them to have people rotating on the show. Oh, I would watch it. And now I'm like, is she meeting with like Audible? Is because Audible has some podcasts. And they just
Oh, I
did
didn't realize that.
the that and they just did the
Players.
series. They did the
Yeah.
audio series. I think that would be a good gift for them, especially if they were like, we already have cultivated this group of Buffyverse like fans.
Hmm.
Let's try to get more Buffy content.
And if they do that, Audible's already a paid subscription like
Hmm.
platform, so she wouldn't have to do an additional pay like subscription base to listen to her show.
Right.
You would be a member if you pay for it. And I would pay for an Audible subscription. And honestly, it may be the only podcast that I would ever pay to subscribe to, depending on the price. But
Especially if she's not holding back.
one of the big things she wants in her podcast is to bring on fans. And so she really wants to incorporate fans into the show, and that's who she
Bring
wants to
us
rotate.
all.
She wants to rotate fans through the show, either as co-hosts or as, like callers or, whatever. But that was really important to her that she really leaned into from the beginning and I was like, oh, this
Mhm.
is why we love you. You're truly one of the most underrated. So
People are giving her that helpless moment, but let me tell you, I loved Cordelia in season one. Like, of course, she was just like a fun villain, like, excuse me while I call everyone I ever met. Classic.
yes.
But what completely solidified my number one fandom for that character was her speech and when she was bad.
Buffy, you're really campaigning for Bitch of the Year, aren't you? As defending champion, you're nervous? I can hold my own. You know, we've never really been close, which is nice because I don't really like you that much, but you have on occasion saved the world and stuff, so I'm gonna do you a favor. And this great favor is, I'm gonna give you some advice. Get over it. Excuse me? Whatever's causing the Joan Collins tude, deal with it. Embrace the pain, spank your inner, mop it, whatever. But get over it. Because pretty soon you're not going to even have the loser friends you've got now. I think it's about time you start minding your own business. It's long past. Nighty-night.
Okay. Alrighty, everybody. So let's talk about Hannibal, the whole reason we're here. Hannibal is an American psychological thriller horror television series developed for NBC. The show is based on the series of novels by Thomas Harris and focuses on the budding relationship between FBI criminal profiler Will Graham and Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a forensic psychiatrist destined to become Graham's most cunning enemy. Graham is haunted by his ability to empathize with serial killers. Wild. Well, I mean, does the sympathy just mean like, yes, I understand that being a serial killer is like a mental disorder? Like, I think I missed that part. I remember them saying like talking about that, and then I was like, okay.
He's able to get inside. I think it's just another way of saying he's able to get inside their heads,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. It's one of those mind palace shows. So like he goes into his mind palace to recreate the
Mind
murder.
Palace.
Yeah, that's what I think it was a Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock reference is what he calls his mind palace when he like sees everything, because he does
Mm.
that thing. So it's a very common trope for like detectives. Because I want to say Cross was doing that. He went into his mind
Yes.
palace to piece together what the criminals were doing. So season one aired April 4th, 2013, and season three, the show had three seasons. It concluded August 29th of 2015. It was developed by Drew Fuller. And the show
Mm.
stars Hugh
Drew?
Darcy. Drew. Oh, wow. Brian Fuller. Okay, so this Drew Fuller is the guy who plays Chris on Charmed.
Oh,
And as I was writing the doc, I was like, I wonder if he's related to Drew Fuller. And then I
that's
fucked up
so
the
funny.
poor guy's name. Wild. Okay, is developed by Brian Fuller, Brian with a Y. And the show stars Hugh Darcy as Will Graham,
Dancy.
Max Mc. Hmm?
Hugh Dancy.
Dancy. I've been saying Darcy the whole time I wrote the document.
Well,
Every fucking like
I'm pretty
all
sure
of
he
the
is British in real life.
he is. He is
So he could be a
British.
Darcy.
So and maybe that's what it was. I saw that it was British and I was like, Mr. Darcy.
That's so
Look at
funny.
I've never even read anything from Jane Austen, but I know who Mr. Darcy
Yeah,
is, and I
yeah.
did watch that movie. What's that? Little Women, right? Um,
Pride and
it's
Prejudice, isn't it?
is it prize?
Yeah, Pride and Prejudice.
It's all the same to me.
It really does feel like all the same.
It's all the same to me. And one of my friends, I think her degree is in Jane Austen literature, and I was like, get the out of here, just get out. I was like, that is super pretentious, and I love you for it. So Hugh Dancy is Will Graham. Mads Mikkelsen is Dr. Hannibal Lecter. And I feel like that is a name that I hear all the time, but I couldn't tell you anything I've seen him in. Caroline DeVarnis is Dr. Alana Bloom. Lawrence Fishburne plays Jack Crawford. And honorable mentions that again, if someone told me they were in this show, I probably would watch it sooner. Gina Torres is Lawrence Fishburne's wife in the series, and there's a little trivia about that as well. Eddie Izzard, which bless it, I did not check to see if that is a dead name. Because Eddie has they transitioned. Please check that while I keep going. They played Dr. Abel Gideon, and Gillian Anderson played Dr. Bedelia du Maurier. And there's also some
I'm
trivia
so
about
glad
her
you
as well.
included Gillian Anderson because that's who I was gonna note to
Well,
you.
so I haven't made it. Gina's the only one that I've seen thus far.
Right.
And I haven't made it that
I
far, but
think Gillian comes maybe in season 2.
and they had 2013 on the run. So I was like, maybe she comes in towards the end of the first season. I don't know. Because I'm getting the feeling that something's about to happen to Alana Bloom. Um,
So
uh,
so Eddie Izzard is Susie Eddie Izzard,
thank
who
you.
is a
Thank you for
British
that.
stand-up comedian, actor, and activist. Her
Yes.
comedic style takes the form of what appears to be to the audience as rambling, whimsical monologues and self-referential pantomime.
I am okay, give me the name again because you know I already forgot it.
Susie Eddie Izzard.
Susie.
Or
So
Izzard?
it's Izzard.
Okay.
I have been a fan of this comedian for years. Um, they I'm using in the past were always dressed as a woman, but was like, no, like, I just like this. And so they did stand up completely, essentially like in drag. And
Mm.
they came out not too long ago. There was one of I think it was what made me fall in love with stand up was their Dress to Kill. And it was fantastic. And they did like in the Dress to Kill DVD, there's a set from a show they did in France, completely in French, that I watched like while I was in high school French, and my French was pretty decent then, but I'd seen Dress to Kill so many times that I was able to catch the parts of the show, like if there were parts that I didn't. Anyways, I'm obsessed with that actor, that comedian. They're so great, and I'm so glad that they are living their truth now. So this show performed really well. It had 93% tomato meter, popcorn meter, 94%.
Wow, no
I was
kidding.
like, so it's genuinely beloved show by the
Which is
audience.
funny
But
to me because I felt like it was criminally underrated when it was
mm,
on. I just don't remember it getting a lot
well,
of
I
love.
where
And maybe
did
maybe I'm thinking that because it got canceled only three
where
seasons
did it
in
air?
NBC.
That's right, I just said that. Oh my God.
Yeah, NBC.
What was
It
MB stock in 2013? Because I was notoriously we were not an NBC household, and
mhm.
and I continued that into adulthood. So anything that aired on NBC was never something I
NBC
watched.
specialized a lot in really dramatic stuff. You know what? It's funny because in the 90s into the early 2000s, a lot of their content was sitcoms. They specialized in the funny, but as
Hmm.
they went into mid 2000s and later, it was a lot more dramatic stuff, and it
Okay.
it did really well. It does really well with the dramatic stuff, and I think it historically has. We've always been an NBC household, and I watched a lot of NBC shows, and so it was very organic for me to fall into Hannibal, and I
Hmm.
was latched on the second that I saw previews for this show, and so I tuned in religiously every week to watch it in real time. So yeah, it's very different. It's I say very like not too different from the original movies, but there are differences that aren't bad, and
Hmm.
I think is it's still kind of in its own lane, especially as far as like TV goes, because I mean you don't see a lot of
Yeah.
like especially then a lot of TV that visual where cannibalism was visualized,
Yeah.
especially in such an elegant, sophisticated way. That's such a gross thing to say.
Right. Yeah. So I just kind of want to give Brian Fuller his flowers before we get into the
Okay.
conversation because I'm not super great with keeping up with like directors and producers and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So like he wrote for American Gods. He
Oh,
wrote for several different like Star Trek series, including he did a Star Trek Discovery, 65 episodes. He's listed for 26 episodes of American Gods. Of course,
Dead Like
Hannibal.
Me. Did you ever
Dead
watch
Like
that?
Me? No, I never watched Dead Like Me or Pushing Daisies, but those are both shows that had hardcore fandoms.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
like people love. I had an old friend who was obsessed with Pushing Daisies and was so mad that it got canceled.
You would have
He did
liked Dead
four
Like
episodes of
Me.
Heroes.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
wrote in Star Trek Voyager and Deep Space Nine. He did
Oh, he's a
81
Trekkie.
episodes of Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, he's a hardcore
Like,
Trekkie.
yeah, I was like, okay, sir. We're loving it. The Queer History of Horror, a mini TV series. He produced 4 episodes of that. Uh, this man's career, I'm like, yes, look like you have some really great shows on his list. And I just wanted to give him some flowers because those seem to be shows like people love Deep Space Nine. Deep Space, like I'm a Next Generation fan because that's what I grew up with. And I can't watch it now. It's very boring.
I
Um,
I sidebar. I love this picture when I googled him, and you're probably seeing it too,
the
of
Satanic
him, the
Feminist.
satanic feminist. We need to put this picture up on screen so people can see. He's wearing this satanic feminist shirt, black shirt with a pentagram in the middle, and a checkered blazer and black rim glasses. And honestly, go for it. Serve, Mr.
It's a
Fuller.
choice, and you live, baby. You
Yeah,
live.
he's clearly comfortable with that
So
choice.
I'm interested to know if he is LGBTQ plus.
Hmm.
Um,
Why do you
I'm
ask
sure
that?
we'll just some of the projects that he's been in, like I feel like Dead Like Me, the people that I know that love it are gay. Um, this Queer for Fear horror series. Uh, Star Trek in general is just a very like inclusive series. So most people are very most Trekkies anyway. I'm not going to say all of them because there are also fans of Superman who think that he is the ultimate white supremacist, which I'm like, you've never read a Superman comic or watched anything Superman related for you to say that. And there are people online
Gross.
saying that, Jonah.
So gross.
Like, uh, um,
I did Google, just blatantly asked, is Brian Fuller
mhm.
gay? And Google's AI, according to Google's AI, which has been known to fully make up shit, says yes, Brian Fuller is openly gay. He has publicly identified as such and often incorporates LGBTQ plus themes into his work, most notably in his series Hannibal.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
he is
So
apparently in a long, according to Wikipedia, which I don't love as a source, but Fuller is in a long-term relationship with interior designer Scott Roberts.
we love to hear it. Well, live your best
Oh
life,
no.
Brian.
Oh
What?
no.
Oh, ooh.
Did
Are you
you?
just seeing this Entertainment Weekly article from
I'm seeing a
2023?
Variety article from 2023.
Yeesh.
This is
Right, let's,
awkward.
well, and everyone, that's what happens when you don't Google people. Jonah, let's just cut that whole part out about giving him his flowers. Oh.
Oh,
Now we're learning this stuff in real time. This is always annoying. I hate that. I hate that so much. Damn it. How dare you? There are really no heroes. No
damn
heroes.
it. I'm really in the way.
Do you know how I used to go on and on and on about how great of a person um the creator of Buffy, yeah, I don't even want to say his name, like the Buffy creator
Yeah.
was, and how he's such a feminist and he's so like
Hmm.
pro female, strong female characters, and then like you get into you start here all the things start coming out, which again is why we will tune into Charisma's podcast.
Yes.
The stuff starts coming out and you're like, fuck. So when I saw
Because she was one of the first, if not the first, to really speak out against him.
yes, I'm sorry. So when I saw Harold Perrineau at Comic-Con, I walked and I got a chance to talk to him and I went up and I said, I just want you to know how special you are to me and how much Mercutio was a part of my journey. And I really hope that your experience on that set was good, that you had a good experience on set, because I want to know that you were able to create that character in a space that was affirming. And he said it was a great experience. But it's just like, now you can't even like,
Yeah. Well, it's an accusation. Doesn't mean it's reality, but I do think it's
yeah.
important to listen to.
Yeah, to listen to victims. We listen to victims
Yeah.
and we investigate. That's us discovering that somebody was accused of something in real time. So let's talk about the show because I have some questions.
How does the
So,
story in this series compare or differ? And remember, I do have
um,
notes, so
okay, so I'm gonna say
gonna get
this.
into that.
I, of course, have seen Silence of the Lambs like 50 million times.
Hmm.
Spoilers for one of the fun facts is that they really didn't use anything from the Silence of the Lambs story from this, but they pull things from Hannibal and
Red
I think
Dragon.
maybe one or two of the others. I think it referenced Hannibal and Red Dragon. Um, but what I remember, because I have seen Hannibal maybe once or twice, and I can't remember if it's a flashback scene from Silence of the Lambs or if it is a scene from Hannibal, but it shows when it talked about him having a relationship with someone that he like essentially got them high on poppers before he killed the guy. And I was
Oh.
wondering if that was this Graham person because it was someone that they had a relationship with. that Hannibal Lecter had a relationship with. But this is gonna make you laugh because I didn't read anything about the series, so I didn't know if it was like a continuation of a story or if it like crosses its own thing. So in my mind, I think I was watching it thinking it was like a prequel, at least like pre-Silence of the Lambs. And they don't really talk like, you know, boring dude clothes is going to be boring dude clothes in any decade. And so I just thought, but when they do that, when you see Dr. Lecter for the first time, he's wearing this super 70s cut suit. And so I was like, okay, we're in the 70s. And that is where we are. This is before Silence of the Lambs. Because as I said in Cross, I gotta know, like I need to create a timeline in my head. And then like the very next scene when they're back in Lawrence Fishburne's office, he he says something about someone taking a picture on their phone and going to a website, and I said, "Huh?
That's
What time
funny.
is this?"
That's so interesting that's what you came to. I don't think I ever once when I first watched it thought that it was a period
Jonah, when you
piece.
go, I know you just finished watching the first, like rewatching the pilot, but I need you to look at Mad's suit
Hmm.
on that episode. Actually, his clothes up until where I am now are very dated. Those suits
Mm.
seem old. And I know fashion is cyclical, but they were not wearing those cut suits in 2013. Like
I wonder if
it
that was
looked,
intentional.
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't see anything fashion like or like costume related in the trivia, but it was something interesting to see because I was very confused. But after
Well,
he said phone and website, I was like, okay, we're in present day. Let's keep going.
if you're going by the age Hannibal was in the first movie, I guess in the 70s he would be around that age. And maybe they're just doing sort of a shadowy representation of who he was in that time, but applying it to modern day. If that makes
Hmm.
any sense whatsoever. I don't even know what I
I'm
just
just
said.
like, I was just like, wait, huh?
You know,
And then
there's
she realized, wait,
another Hannibal series. Well, it's not really a Hannibal series, but it's Clarice. So it's based on Jodie Foster's character.
huh, are we gonna
I,
hear
s-
the lamb screaming?
I don't know. I don't want to say that is a prequel. How
I'm
do you
sorry.
feel about these characters?
Um, okay. I think I was more interested in the story than the characters. I'm I'm more concerned with what's going on with Gina Torres's character. She did more when he was like, "Is it too late to have children?" And she was like, "It's too late for me," and rolls over in bed. I was like, "What's going on here?" That I think that was the first thing to make me pause. But I'm more interested in the story. It seems like there's a story that's going on throughout the show, and then you're basically getting like a killer of the week per episode. But then you're seeing like the development of these two. Now, mind you, again, I'm 4.5 episodes in. I haven't finished episode 5. So I don't think I'm like bonded to anyone yet, but I am very interested in what's going on with Gina Torres and Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, I think one of the great things that this show does is the excellent casting. I think Mads Mikkelsen is a much more
Is it Michelson? I wish you would have, because I've been
I
saying
I
Mickelson this whole time.
I think Mikkelsen is what I've always heard, but I may be wrong. I feel like that's what I've always heard, or at least that's how I've always read it. He's to me he's a much more subdued and less aggressive Hannibal Lecter from what I remember of Hannibal Lecter in the movies, but my reference goes particularly to Silence of the Lambs because that's what I
Hmm.
remember most.
Oh yeah.
It's what I've seen the most, I think. And I think because of that, and you can please tell me if you agree or disagree on any of this because I am curious if I'm just misremembering about how Anthony Hopkins played him then, but to me it seems like Mads Hannibal is just more reserved and he seems more approachable, and that makes him even more unsettling to me.
Hmm. I
Um,
think this is definitely before he went off the rails. And so what
yes.
we're introduced to is like a completely like he has done his berserker mode because we know at this point that he is eating people. We haven't seen him really kill anyone
Mhm. Right.
or how he's getting his meat.
And
Um,
what I like that they do in the first episode is they really make you think that the killer and that are, you know, the killer that they end up catching is meant to be Hannibal. And then when
mhm,
you meet Hannibal, you're like, wait. And then because this guy, and so like it definitely, I think it opens really,
yeah.
it's a complex like plot line, and once they start getting deeper into the dynamics between Will and Hannibal, and
Mhm,
Hannibal as his doctor now, um, I think it's as a psychiatrist. I think it gets even more complex and a lot of
yeah.
gray area. It's very fascinating in that way. And speaking of Will, I think Hugh Dancy plays Will Graham very mysterious, awkward, moody, and
Mhm,
innocently empathetic. And I think he does a really good job of that. The other thing that I was going to say about Hannibal, which I feel like you're probably going to completely disagree with me on, is that I know this sounds psychotic, but I sort of find Mads Hannibal more comforting and approachable than Anthony Hopkins Hannibal. Like
well, of course,
I
because
could totally.
it's before he went off the rails. He's still in full on psychiatrist mode. Like he is a doctor right now. I feel like he's a doctor first, cannibal second right
That's
now.
yeah. Yeah, but I
When we meet
honestly,
him, he's cannibal first, doctor second.
yeah. And he does certainly become more unhinged, but I don't know. I don't remember even by the end of season three, I don't remember feeling as though I don't know. I don't remember a lot about it, so I really can't say.
Mhm.
Yes, that's a fair observation that he hasn't
Yeah.
fully broken yet. So there's really no. I mean, the whole point is for him to seem that way.
There was the scene when you first see him in session and he gives the guy a tissue and the guy puts like one of his used tissues on the table and he's like, I was like,
Yes.
oh, he's gonna
Yeah.
eat that man. Um,
Yeah. So
and but that
how
obviously is because as an audience member, I know what Hannibal does, you know.
Mhm. Right. How it's different from the original franchise, I think, is overall the series is more like a cat and mouse battle of wills that I don't remember so much
Mhm.
the movies being like. I mean, I guess Silence kind of gets close to that, but not in the same way. And
A battle of Will
yes,
Graham.
that's actually what I thought of when
That was
I wrote
stupid.
it. I wrote it first before I even thought about that. Interesting, there's an interesting plot structure wherein Hannibal spends much of the series profiling Will, while Will is unknowingly profiling Hannibal, which I think is really cool, you know? Um,
Hmm.
and like I said before, I think it's tragically underrated as a series, but it's very like it's interesting to me, and really it's enlightening to see that it
Well,
got such a high
clearly we see it's
rating.
well rated. Yeah.
Yeah, like a high rating on Rotten Tomatoes is it leaves
Yeah.
me feeling very, hopeful that people didn't completely sleep on it. But I will say
Yeah,
what I
I
don't love about the series is the sort of will he won't he story arc of Will Graham, like will he become corrupted by Hannibal? It kind of gets a little overplayed to me.
mm,
And I don't know if I'll feel that same way as I continue to rewatch it. And then another thing, I there could have been more cannibalism. When I think back on it, I don't feel like I got enough cannibalism the first time I watched it. And I don't know,
I think it's a
maybe
lot going on, but again, it's very like you don't see it, but you know it's happening. Like
Yes.
again, I've only seen him cut what looks to be a human organ once.
Hmm.
Like we've seen what the other killers are doing,
Hmm.
but we know what Hannibal is doing. So what we're not seeing the killing, but what we're seeing is him feeding people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the interesting psyche of it, right? Is that it's kind of his thing. And like and then you get into the whole like that the man with the eating his brain kind of like it's like oh like it's just so I'm trying to remember if that I really do feel it comes in the show because that's such an iconic scene from the movie, I
Yeah.
think.
So you know it was really giving me like tidbits of that scene, and I want to say maybe it's episode 4 because I feel like it was one of the last things that I remember like fully watching. So the girl whose dad in the first episode was the serial killer
Mm,
that Will ends up having to kill.
mm,
Spoilers. Um, Hannibal works out. So not only is he seeing her, so she's they felt like she was staying with him, and he convinced her to take mushrooms to work through some of her trauma. And the other doctor, geez, what is her name? Alana Bloom comes over, and the girl is sitting there, and she's like, "Hi, how are
hmm
you?" You know, it's very much like because that's how that guy was, and they do this kind of close up to her face, and for some reason, I thought I was gonna see like some blood coming from somewhere. But I think she really is just
mm.
on the mushrooms, but or the psilocybin. And then I'm like, are those the mushrooms that were... This just hit me. So the
Yeah.
episode because there were bodies. There were
Hmm.
bodies found that were buried, and I'm like, did he steal a mushroom from the bodies? Is
Yeah,
that a
because
mushroom
the
from the
bodies are
body?
covered in mushrooms, which I think was such a visually fascinating and enthralling like scene.
Or mushrooms. Like they got tubes to water them or something. No, it's a marijuana plant. That's not marijuana.
And it reminded me of The Last of Us.
But you never watched that.
Right.
I never watched it. I never watched it.
It's the whole premise of that is that it's like mushroom zombies, basically. So
Oh.
it's a really interesting premise that I
Yeah.
think
See, when I'm
is
thinking
very
about
realistic.
sentient mushrooms, I go to Motherland, Fort Salem.
Mm. I do love that laugh was so villainous. And honestly, I think I might cut it and use it as like an ongoing sound in this show.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Um,
Y'all, I
I
just need the listeners to know this that my lips and tongue are fully purple from my wine. And I'm only one glass in.
well, the last step right there. All
This
right.
Malbec is got me.
Well, while you finish that off, we're gonna take a little break.
Okay.
Okay, so as far as Hannibal goes, what do you think about this new iteration in terms of bringing anything to the franchise?
Okay, so as I am not as familiar with the last three movies as I am with the first one, I think, and again, it is its own thing. But if I'm putting it in, say like I say, okay, well that didn't happen in 1990. What, three is 93 when Silence of the Lambs came out?
I thought it was
But
91, but maybe.
was it? It was the early 90s.
Yeah.
So instead, let's just say if that's set in 2013, the Silence of the Lambs now in this new world takes place in like 2030, right? So I think this is serving as a good backstory to this like unhinged, convicted serial killer that we met in the first movie. But we're seeing him already with his, I'm gonna say pathology. I don't think that's the right word. We're seeing him already with his like,
Affliction. MO.
yeah. Let's just say affliction. That's an affliction. You got that taste, that you got that
Not
itch for
that
the flesh.
taste. Yeah.
Which is also a little hint to a piece of trivia that I have later.
Okay. Noted. Um, would we want to see more in this world? I mean, it might be hard for you to say since you're only a handful of episodes in.
I'm gonna say this based on you telling me it got canceled. So was he on to Hannibal? And feel free to say I'm gonna continue watching it just because I'm a completionist. Was he on to Hannibal by the time the show got canceled?
From what I remember, yes, all cards were pretty much on the table.
Okay. Um,
Because
yeah.
Will begins to make really questionable choices that leaves you wondering.
Mm,
That's why I say a will he, won't he kind of dynamic.
yeah, there's also some
Created.
trivia about that too.
Mm.
But based on like that, as I was talking about earlier, what I remember from what I think was from Hannibal, he and Will had a relationship. I've never read the books though. I'm going to say
Mm.
that up front. But I think that is very, because in one of the I believe it was Hannibal, he had a gay relationship with a man that I believe was a detective.
Hmm.
I
I didn't,
gotta rewatch that movie.
I didn't realize that. I don't remember that being a thing in this series, really, like an obvious thing, I should say. There was definitely a gay-esque like dynamic between them, but I don't know that it ever really shows like an explicitly gay relationship or interaction between them.
Mm,
So um well, yeah, I would as someone who's completed the series, I I would have loved to see more of what they
yeah.
would do in this particular iteration. And I would be open to revisiting this one. I would also be open to another variation of the Hannibal series. I will say I started Clarice and I didn't stick to it. I
Hmm.
It wasn't that it was bad. I just it didn't keep me the way that I thought it might. Um, and that was a few years ago. I also think it was during a time where when like there was
Okay, I
just
just
so much
Googled that
content.
scene I was talking about. That is not, it is, I'm totally misremembering it. I'm sorry.
Wait, the scene, like a scene between.
So I just Googled what happened in the Popper scene in Hannibal. And good old Google AI says Lecter serves his court-appointed psychiatrist during one of their sessions. Lecter invites Mason to demonstrate autoerotic asphyxiation, then gives him a cocktail of psychedelic drugs disguised as an amyl popper, which is like amyl nitrates, is what poppers is, and suggests that he peels his face off with a broken mirror. And then so you see there's this scene of this guy like laughing because he's so fucked up that he's like laughing and like carving up
Oh
his
my
face.
God.
At this point in time, I'm definitely gonna say it's a good time. Like I'm into the show. Like I said, I'm gonna continue watching it. Yes, I'm a completionist, but I don't think that's why I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish it because I think it's interesting. I want to see, well, as far as we go with how Will is like figures out what's going on, because where I am now, like that the girl whose dad was the killer at the beginning, like she killed the one dude because he came in. He was like, I didn't kill that girl. He didn't kill her friend because you remember her friend got murdered.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
So this guy's sister was killed by her dad. And so the narrative is currently out there that she was helping her dad, like she was the bait. She helped lure people in. I don't trust her right now. So at this point, I'm like, was she? I don't know. But also, I'm like, girl, I think Lecter about to eat you. So I don't, yeah, I'm gonna continue watching this because
Hmm.
I'm in it. A character we didn't talk about that I'm sorry to jump back up is that damn reporter. I don't like her. She's getting on my nerves.
I don't know if I
She's
remember the reporter.
she's gonna show up as you keep watching. This is a redhead person. Um in the
Oh,
cabin where so the
yeah,
hair that they find in the cabin
yes.
is hers because she's in, and I'm just like, girl.
Yeah, I don't think I liked her much either.
Honestly,
She's
Jonah,
messy.
I think as people who went to school for journalism, I feel like we may be a little
Critical,
like critical of like TV journalists.
as we
Why
should
do I
be.
feel like we've had this conversation before?
Yes, yes, we have. And variations of this conversation,
I
both on and
literally just
off
had,
camera.
yeah, I'm literally
Deja
having deja vu right now. Like
vu.
it's freaky. As the words were coming out of my mouth, I was like, we have talked about
Yeah,
this.
multiple times, because I think it enrages both of us that we
Yeah.
know this is not. I was watching something the other day. I don't know if it was The Flash or something that I was like, that is not what a reporter would do or should. Like, like there was.
Are
I
you
think it
talking
was
about
something.
Iris?
I think it was something related to a source or something. I don't know that it was The Flash,
Hmm.
but this is the only thing I think of where a reporter is, featured and as a prominent character that I'm watching currently. But it may have been a movie that I watched or something, but it was just like, no, like no. Oh, I think I know. I think it was, yeah, The Flash where the editor of the paper, played by the fine ass Tone Bell, um, he wanted her source. Like he asked for her source, and I'm like, why are you asking for her source? Because don't I don't think the even
I do
editors
not
should
remember him
have.
being in The Flash.
Yeah,
I
Tone
don't think
Bell.
I know who this guy
He
is.
was an editor. He was very brief. Like I don't even remember seeing him after the one or two episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Tone Bell.
I'm gonna
So,
eventually get to The Flash. That's one of the longer shows. That's gonna be the last one I watch. But I'm watching all the short ones, and Stargirl had like 4 seasons, I think, like 4 short seasons. So, or maybe 3 short seasons. It's 3 short seasons. So I'll be watching Black Lightning next. But yeah.
but I
Mhm.
think they do that a lot. Like writers do that a lot with like these really
Oh, okay, that's who that is.
notable, like high profile, like civil servant jobs. Like they do it with
Hmm.
law enforcement professionals that they feature in TV and film, do it with doctors. And I'm sure everyone from those professions also would say that's not how it's
Yes.
done. That's
Yes. Oh, I had a friend who was she was in forensics and she was like, I can't watch Law and Order. I can't watch any of those shows because everything's wrong. And I
oh
was like,
God.
what? Yeah.
Yeah, I can only
Yeah.
imagine. I would 100% watch again because I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I had to Google Tone Bell because I'm like, but he was in Survival of the Thickest
yes, and
and
he's a
I'm back.
comedian. He's a stand-up.
Um, if y'all have not watched Survival of the Thickest, please go tune in because we are obsessed with Michelle Buteau, or at least I am. I love.
Have you seen that new Hulu movie? Yes, you have, because the other day
I
you
did. I
text
watched it the
me
other day,
and
and
told me.
I was very upset with the turn it took.
Mm.
With the old dude just like choking on an almond because he lived alone, and I was like, well, that hit too close to home.
Ugh.
Um,
Mm.
just like I couldn't finish watching the Natasha Rothwell show on Hulu or something about dying alone or something like that.
How to
Because
Die
in the very
Alone?
how
Or
to yeah, because in the very first
how to
episode,
Die
she had
Single?
a bookshelf fell on her and it fucked up her head, so she was bleeding everywhere. And then that took me back to June when I had that bad fall and woke up
I
in a puddle of
totally
blood.
get that. It would be, I can imagine how triggering, I can only imagine how triggering that was to watch it. It was an oddly close to home like plot line for you. And like it is a fairly depressing show. I mean, it has its moments of
Yeah. And then by the end of the
levity,
show, she's
but
committing identity theft to go to Hawaii. And I'm like, I don't like
she makes
that.
some really stupid choices. Like it is weird like the choices that she makes, but then it ends on an optimistic, you know,
Yeah.
note, I think, but then also a semi-dramatic note where it's like,
I'm
oh,
I
this
want to
could,
give her the benefit of doubt because I think she wrote the funniest episode of Insecure. Or did she write it or she directed? Maybe she directed
I don't know,
it.
but she definitely acted on it, right?
Yeah, she was in Insecure. That's Kelly, I think is the character's name. But do you remember the episode where the main character is at the hospital and her ex is there with his current like girlfriend and their baby and
Mm.
in one of her like mind palace moments she's she's holding a baby, she's like, man, F your baby, she
Yeah.
like throws it.
Fuck them kids! Elijah! What the hell is wrong with you? You told me! Issa, what the fuck? You want some too?
I walk around like that bitch.
Natasha Rothwell wrote that episode.
He
It
throws
is
it in the
truly-
garbage, right?
Yeah. Either that or like in one of those dumpster things. Like she wrote truly one of the funniest episodes of that show. And I was or produced. Gosh, I can't remember. Maybe she wrote but she at least directed the show, and it was, in my opinion,
Yeah.
one of the funniest episodes.
Yes, it was such a good episode. And it reminds me of the movie I've been wanting to watch for a while now that came out on Hulu like maybe a year or so ago called The Drop. And the whole premise of this movie is they drop a baby in the beginning of the movie. And so it does this like it creates all these weird like dynamics, like ripple effects as a result because
That sounds familiar.
I sent you the trailer for it, I think.
Did you see me? Okay.
Because
yes.
it's you remember Pen 15,
Mhm.
the tall white girl, forget her name in real life. But
Anna, I know her name is Anna Cohen on the show, but I don't know if that's her real name, or at least her real name is Anna.
yeah, she is in it. She is the
Okay.
dropper. The plot line is just so ridiculous yet so relatable that I'm like, I want to see this, and I don't know why I haven't like pressed the button on watching it yet, but I think I
Okay,
just
so
want to watch it with someone because it just seems like it would just be so wild.
So according to this, she actually wrote like 17 episodes of the show. Natasha Rothwell.
Okay, we're going back to that.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to see, and she produced 28 episodes.
Okay, Natasha, we see you.
Okay, like credits, ma'am.
She's
credits.
also in The White Lotus.
She is in the White Lotus. Which I still need to finish the Italian season. You know, I can't sit still, and the bulk of the season is in subtitles, and I'm like, I can't multitask. So I gotta get back into that so I can watch the newer season. So, are you ready for some trivia?
Yes,
Ready for this
please.
good trivia? Okay, so Mads Michelson, I haven't figured that out yet. I really should have done that beforehand, but I did not. Did all of his own cooking on screen, including the egg trick. He was trained by the show's food stylist Janice Poon.
A food stylist.
I know, isn't that fun? So in my mind, you've seen Bridesmaids, like, right?
Yes,
You've
I
seen
just watched it
Bridesmaids? Okay.
recently.
It's truly one of my favorite movies. It's so funny. I wonder, did they have a food stylist that did all those cupcakes? Because those were some beautiful cupcakes that she made.
Okay, I just looked up
Anyway.
what is a food stylist. It's a creative professional who arranges food for aesthetic purposes and photos and videos. That's exactly what I thought it would be.
Okay. Oh, then I can put food stylist on my resume because I've had to do that before. I've shot photos for restaurants.
Same.
I've shot photos for restaurants. So,
Are we
Jonah,
both food stylists?
were you paid for it?
Yeah,
That means that
it's
we're
for a
professional.
magazine.
Then, Jonah, we're professional food stylists.
Okay, I'll take it.
Right? Okay. Hugh Dancy actually recommended Mads for the role of Hannibal Lecter as the two had become friends during the filming of King Arthur 2005. I remember watching that movie in theater. The only thing I remember about it is that like the Romans were there and King Arthur was supposed to be like one of the Celts or something like that. It was very interesting because it touched the back. I think that was the first time I found out that like Romans were in England because like Romans were all over the place. So a lot of the roads and their Roman baths and Bath, England, there's a place in England called Bath. Like the Romans were up in it. They were up there
I do
making
not
shit
remember
happen.
this movie.
Yeah. I don't think it was like super popular or anything. I just remember seeing it. So I'm wondering if Hugh was Arthur. Not that I remember it being like great, and I feel like maybe there was no magic in it, so I
Keira
was like, oh.
Knightley's in this.
She was in that. Yes, she
Oh my
was.
goodness, Mads
That's
Mads
probably
Mikkelsen
why so.
looks fine in this. Look at his long hair, and he looks so dirty. Come here, boy, let me bathe
Mm,
you.
no
Ooh,
thanks.
the jawline, the facial structure. You know how I feel
Mm-mm.
about a good jawline.
As I was watching the show, I was like, I bet Jonah's lusting after both of them because they have the same jawline.
Oh,
But I
Hugh
was like,
Dancy, I was so hot for it when I watched the show, and that's notable because that was before I was gay.
that's hilarious. I found them both to be completely unfuckable.
Really?
Um,
Even you?
yeah, I am not as sexually attracted to anyone on the show.
Okay.
Not one person.
They're not for
Not
everyone.
that it has to be, but you know. Um, yeah. Okay. Da, 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 da. In in the film King Arthur from 2004, almost 10 years before Hannibal, Dancy's character says, I don't kill for pleasure unlike some. Mads responds with, well, you should try it someday. You might get a taste for it.
Now, is this a line that's also in Hannibal the series? Because that sounds so familiar, or is it just so eerily
I
similar
think
to
it's
the
just a fact about killing and taste. I think
Yes, I okay, that's what I thought.
that's what I got from it. I didn't pick it up from the show, but again, I'm 4.5 episodes in.
But it also sounds exactly like something Hannibal, like Mads Hannibal would
Yeah, I'm
say.
sure. I feel like that's a conversation he had with the girl because he's essentially at this point it feels like he's grooming that girl.
Yeah.
Um, Lawrence Fishburne, who plays Jack Crawford, and Gina Torres, who plays Crawford's wife Bella, were married to each other in real life. They have since separated. They separated in 2016. Fishburne filed for divorce a year later.
So they were
And
married
I
while
was
they were filming the show together.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. I didn't know
David
that.
Tennant auditioned for the lead role of Hannibal in 2013, for
Doctor
Hannibal
Who.
2013. Producer Brian Fuller was so impressed with this audition, he told a magazine that even though he didn't get the role, he wanted to write a Tennant a guest role as a deranged serial killer. I don't know if that ever happened clearly. I'm hoping that it did because I love David Tennant. Hugh Dancy screen tested for the role of Hannibal in Hannibal Rising 2007.
Hmm.
Isn't that fun?
I guess he would have been that age, yeah.
Gillian Anderson, who plays Bedelia du Maurier, was in talks to play the role of Clarice Starling in the Hannibal film 2001.
Oh.
In fact, Anderson has admitted that her characterization of Dana Scully in The X-Files 1993 was largely inspired by Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling in The Silence of the Lambs. So
I
yeah,
can kind of see that now.
yeah. The series borrows characters and stories quite liberally from Thomas Harris's novel Red Dragon, Hannibal, and Hannibal Rising, but surprisingly, not from The Silence of the Lambs, even though it was from that film that, you know, the character is like super popular.
Juice, yeah.
I think this is because the film was only one in the series not produced by Dino De Laurentiis, and thus the producers of the series did not have the rights to it. Whether or not they have or intended to use the rights to Clarice Starling is unknown at this point. Isn't that interesting?
Hmm.
Interesting stuff. The role of Dr. Bedelia DeMaria was originally written for a much older woman with Angela Lansbury in mind. Could you imagine Jessica Fletcher being in this? When
What?
Lansbury could not accept the role due to conflicts with the Australian production of Driving Miss Daisy, what?
Mm, mm,
The
mm.
role was rewritten for a younger actress. Gillian Anderson was cast. Isn't that fun?
Oh. Huh.
Gillian Anderson is also in American Gods.
Oh. Okay, so she
So,
has a like an ongoing
mhm,
relationship with Brian Fuller, I guess.
yeah. Speaking of Brian, he said the relationship between Hannibal Metz and Will Hugh isn't just friendship, but more than that. He even went that far to confirm the common pairing as Hanagram.
Get the fuck out.
Jonah's like, I hate it. I hate
No,
it.
I'm not here for that.
The color red is in almost, if not all, scenes of the show, sometimes extremely obvious and other times subtle and
Mm,
maybe darker or lighter in tone. Cynthia Nixon's character, Cade Prue, Prue, I thought it was Prunell, but there's an extra
Burnell.
R there. It's like Prunell,
Mm-mm.
is an anagram for Paul Crindler. Crindler is the male character from which the Lecter books on whom her character is based. That is a weird sentence. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's played by Ray Liotta in Hannibal 2001. Lecter also likes using anagrams throughout the books and films. If I had to solve a case by solving an anagram,
Nope.
it would never get solved.
Nope.
It would never get solved. I remember schools like having those like, can you find the words in the thing? And I could only find the easy words. So here are the womp womps. Abigail is cut on the left side of her neck. I think Abigail is the girl, right? The daughter.
I think so.
I probably should have put her in the character. Jonah, will you look up who that actress is? Because I feel like I've referenced her a billion times in this episode. Abigail is cut on the left side of her neck. However, the scar changes between the left and right side. So I was like, what was that on again? I don't remember. Did you look at the dailies? They'll be fine. No one's paying attention. Okay. The extensive, severe winter settings reveal the Toronto filming sites rather than represent the Baltimore dramatic setting. Baltimore winters are mild, and snow rarely accumulates on the ground for more than a few days at a time. Yet, snow covered landscapes and large accumulations of snow on the streets are common in the series, and there is snowfall to be seen through the window of Hannibal's dining room during nearly every meal.
Mhm. Abigail Hobbs is played by Casey Roll.
Thank you. Thank you. At this point, I do not trust Abigail. Throughout the series, Will doesn't exhibit proper lab procedure. So in an autopsy suite, if you're going to be near the bodies, gown, apron, gloves, booties, and goggles, face screen are required as personal protection. Will he ain't wearing none of that.
Speaking of things that makes like real life professionals like scream at the screen,
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
that
mhm.
has to be one of them.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, those are some fun things about the show. I love this stuff. Like, okay, first of all, I'm like Cynthia Nixon's in the show. I'll keep
I
watching.
forgot about that.
And then again, like, does Dave Tennant ever show up? I don't know. Do you remember seeing him at all?
I don't remember.
Well, either way, I feel like there are a lot of people that I've listed earlier that I'm very excited to see. Jonah, quickly, is there anything that you're watching?
I'm still on my Xena.
We love it. We
I
we love
started
to hear it.
Goosebumps as well. The new
The new one,
Goosebumps.
the new
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
I've only seen the first episode. I'm interested to know what's going
It's
on.
kind of intense and a little bit more
Yeah.
gory than the original.
Oh, okay. I live, I live. Okay, David Schwimmer, you better get your check, boo. All right, everybody. Well, I want to thank you for listening to the Rewind podcast. Before you go, please take a moment to show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. As you heard, we're on iHeart now, the good pods, whatever. There are many places you can find us. Every positive review, rating, and a subscriber helps. So give us some clicks, baby.
Connect with us on the socials, Facebook at The Rewind Podcast 1, Blue Sky at The Rewind Podcast.bsky.social, Instagram at The Rewind Podcast, and TikTok. You can email The Rewind Podcast 1 at gmail.com, and you can find me on Instagram at JSTaylorWrites or at my new account at keeping.it.reels.
You can find me on Blue Sky at Keeks on Camera and the same thing on Instagram. I will actually not be on Instagram. I'm trying to anyway between the 19th and the 26th because there is a boycott. So I will do my best to stay away from those and only be on Blue Sky. So until then, everyone, be kind.
And please rewind.
A goodbye.
Just be kind and listen to the rewind.